What if I told you that humans 3,000 years ago had brains that worked completely differently than yours? That they literally heard voices, saw gods, and lived in what we would call a waking dream state? And that modern consciousness, the voice in your head right now, might be a recent evolutionary accident? This isn't science fiction. This is the bicameral mind theory, and it will change how you see human history forever. In 1976, psychologist Julian Jaynes dropped a bombshell that academia is still arguing about. He claimed that until around 1200 BCE, humans were essentially unconscious, not sleeping, but lacking the self-aware inner voice you're rehearing right now as you listen to this. Instead, they heard the voices of gods. And here's the kicker: this wasn't mental illness. This was normal human consciousness, so to speak. Besides, let's talk brainwaves because this is where it gets wild. Your brain right now is pumping out beta waves minus 13 to 30 hertz. These are the frequencies of analysis, self-awareness, and that constant inner chatter. This is modern consciousness. But bicameral humans? Their brains were dominated by completely different patterns. Alpha waves, the relaxed, receptive state where you're not thinking, just receiving. Theta waves, the same frequency you experience during vivid dreams and deep meditation. The frequency where people report hearing voices and divine communications. Here's the mind-blowing part. Bicameral humans may have lived in a permanent dream state while wide awake. Their daytime brainwaves looked like your REM sleep patterns. Think about that. They experience reality the way you experience dreams. The evidence. This explains so much about ancient history, why ancient texts read like fever dreams, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Bible. Gods just appear, impossible things happen, and nobody questions it. Because to them, this was reality. Why ancient art looks surreal. Those weird Egyptian hieroglyphs, bizarre mythological creatures, gods with animal heads. They weren't being symbolic. They were depicting what they literally experienced. Why massive temples were built for acoustics. Ever wonder why ancient temples have those perfect echo chambers? They weren't built for music. They were built to amplify the voices of gods that people actually heard. The archaeological smoking gun, around 1200 BCE, something catastrophic happened. Civilizations collapsed worldwide. Cities were abandoned. And suddenly, historical records changed tone entirely. People start writing about lost gods and silent heavens. What if this was the moment human consciousness changed forever? The alien comparison. If you met a bicameral human, they would seem utterly alien. Imagine someone who never questions what they're told because they physically hear divine commands, has no inner monologue or self-doubt, experiences hallucinations as reality, makes decisions based on voices only they can hear, lives in a constant state of religious ecstasy, has no concept of individual identity as we know it. They wouldn't be less intelligent. They built pyramids, created writing, organized massive civilizations, but their consciousness operated on completely different principles. They would look at us and think we're broken, constantly second-guessing ourselves, plagued by anxiety and self-doubt, cut off from direct divine communication. The transition. So what happened? How did we go from God-hearing dreamwalkers to anxious overthinkers? Jaynes believed it was an evolutionary adaptation to increasing social complexity. As civilizations grew larger and more complex, the old bicameral system broke down. People needed to think for themselves, plan ahead, and navigate social hierarchies. The voices of gods became the voice in your head. Your consciousness, that inner narrator that never shuts up, might be humanity's attempt to replace the lost divine voices with an internal guidance system. But we lost something profound in the translation. The modern implications. This theory explains why meditation and psychedelics feel so profound. we're temporarily accessing our ancestral consciousness. Religious experiences often involve hearing voices or feeling divine presence. Ancient wisdom traditions seem to know things we've forgotten. Modern humans feel spiritually disconnected despite material progress. We might be the first humans in history who are truly alone in our heads. The controversy. Now, most mainstream scientists think Jaynes was wrong. They argue consciousness evolved much earlier and that bicameral experiences were just primitive superstition. But the neurological evidence is compelling, and it explains too many historical mysteries to dismiss entirely. Whether Jaynes was right or wrong, his theory forces us to question everything we assume about human nature and consciousness itself. What if the voice in your head isn't the pinnacle of human evolution, but just one possible way of being human? What if ancient humans weren't primitive versions of us, but we're operating with an entirely different form of consciousness that we can barely comprehend? The next time you read an ancient myth about gods walking among humans, remember, to the people who wrote it, that might not have been a story. That might have been Tuesday. What do you think? Are we the first truly conscious humans, or did we lose something profound when the gods went silent? Let me know in the comments, and if this blew your mind, you know what to do with that subscribe button.